Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. And Into the Afroverse is where we're taking Black folks into the future. You know, one of the great things about this show, one of the things that I like to talk about is this connection between, looking at Black folk in the future, talk a lot about geek culture here, tech culture, but also I talk about business. And today's guest, I think, is the perfect combination of all of those things. Today, Into the Afroverse welcomes Hilton George. Hilton George is the founder and CEO of BlurredCon, the Blurred Nerd Convention, approaching its seventh run at the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City, Virginia. As the largest multi-fandom convention dedicated to highlighting blurred culture, contributions, and community, BlurredCon hosts over 100 panels, tabletop and video gaming tournaments, comedy shows, concerts, cosplay concerts, anime screening theater, arcade atrium, and the biggest food truck rally anywhere. And with that, I'd like to welcome my guest, Mr. Hilton George. How you doing today?
Well, how you doing, good sir? Good to see you again.
Yes, it's been a while since we've had the opportunity to communicate. So let's get right to it. We talk about BlurredCon. You said this is the seventh one. Is the seventh one coming, or you've done seven already?
Oh no, it's the seventh one coming, and we'll be 8 years old after the seventh. So it's where did the time go? I don't know. But it's here.
That's awesome. And I actually remember the first one. I was privileged. I was honored to actually present at the first one, the first two, actually. So to see it grow, and I went to the last one this past summer. So to see it grow in the way that it has, man, just congratulations to you and your team and all the work that you put into it.
Appreciate it.
So how did this get started? Like, where does this come from, this BlurredCon?
I mean, you could say it's probably similar to your show and your mission. We look out into the spaces and where we are trying to assert ourselves and express ourselves, and we don't see ourselves reflected back at us. We go into nerd spaces, we go into tech spaces, we go into geek spaces, we go into our fandom spaces, right. And we see ourselves necessarily, we're kind of in the audience, we're participating as consumers. But, we're not necessarily getting that reflection in the programming. We're not getting the discussions and the panels. We're not getting the same type of regard commensurate with our population and our participation with the guest lists and things like that. And it's a unique thing being a Black nerd. I mean, it is a singular experience. And I thought at one point as a cosplayer and as a anime nerd, as a comic book nerd, that it would be really cool if there was a convention out there that had all the cool stuff that I love in all my favorite conventions, the big anime cons and gaming cons, but, highlighted and showcased, the diversity and the representation that had us, kind of at the center. And right. So much of what is out there, from music to fashion to business to media, television, movies that has centered around us and our stories has flourished and done great things. I said, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. I didn't have any sense of self-preservation, admittedly, so I went into this with all enthusiasm and gusto, and just kind of went with it, and just was lucky enough to have the right people come around and gather around. Supporting, members of the convention running community, members of the nerd and Black nerd community, friends, family, my recently passed co-founder, right. Hassan, all coming together to make it work. That brought that first year around, and to see it grow exponentially year after year, leading up to COVID and then growing again, when we come back, has been a real blessing.
Yeah, and like I said, when we talk about this nerd culture, this geek culture, so forth, this is like $1 billion culture. And, as with so many other things in this country, Black folk are kind of left out. So what I like what you're doing and others are doing with this type of convention is putting Black folk in this space. For folks that are listening, can you give us some insight into the process of putting this together and having this thing grow and the challenges that have come with it?
Mm. Well, you know, the fact that you go into a business adventure like a convention where there is no template, right? You know, if I were going into music or fashion or investment or open up a storefront selling cookies or tchotchkes or whatever, there'd be some type of a template there that I could mold this around that would, you know, avoid the potholes and avoid some of the locked doors and speed bumps that a lot of businesses get going started off. But I also had the wherewithal, you know, early on to come up with my idea and shut up.
Right.
You know, a lot of us, we like to talk and we get real excited about our ideas, and then our IP gets lost or stolen or taken away because someone beats us to the punch and they go and get, you know, incorporated, and they go and get the copyrights, they go and get the domain names and all of this. I spent the first year and a half from inception to advertising just getting the infrastructure together, getting the LLP, getting the LLCs, getting the bank accounts, getting, you know, the EINs and the tax records and forms and everything in, getting incorporated, getting the you know, the domain names, the social media names, so that by the time someone heard the term BlurredCon, everything would already be in place for them to go and Google and look up and kind of explore. So that was one of the challenges, because I get excited about stuff. I get real excited about Blurred because I am a geek. Right. And so, you know, I want to tell people, and then you kind of got to shut up, like, you know, so that was a tough piece. Right. The next thing is that, you know, we as a people often don't know exactly what our perfect business model looks like or consumption model looks like. You know, we will say, yes, conceptually, I would like to see Black people doing ABC 1, 2, 3, but we don't automatically know how that would best be marketed to us. So what BlurredCon would ultimately be, or what it would look like, you know, based off of any kind of survey or some unified vision of what the con would be, was really a toss-up until I'd say even year 2. Because that feedback you get from the marketplace and from the community happens at an annual basis at the convention, and you hone and trigger and you know, redirect the convention to kind of meet the needs of the community where it is. So, you know, the first convention looked different from the second convention, and it looked different from the third. Is like it kind of grows and morphs. And one of the things that I found that was really, I don't want to say a struggle, but it was a calculation, was how Black can we go in the geek space without looking like we are lampooning or, you know, not being serious about, you know, the Black space, right? Right. So, you know, obviously, you know, everybody got jokes when you say, oh, you're making a Black convention. Well, we need to have a spades tournament, and we need to have a barbecue. And we had to be like, all right, hold up. Every stand-up comedian in the world before Barack Obama had all these jokes about what the Black president was going to be. And then we had one, and then we're like, oh, okay, so there's not going to be barbecues on the front lawn and busted cars in the yard and all that kind of stuff. So feeling that out, like how much could we superimpose the Black experience over the nerd space and really acutely and smartly and slickly kind of put it in there in a way that would be fun, speak to who we are, allow for community to engage and participate and celebrate what we're doing, you know, has been an incremental, you know, wall to push. I'll give you an example. In year 1, in the lead up to year 1, and nobody knows this, so you're getting a break here. We had a pork rinds company call us and say, we got pallets of pork rinds, man. We out here in South Carolina, we would put pork skins all over your country. We got all these flavors and stuff. And I brought it to my team, and I was like, these guys want to bring pork rinds to the Black Nerd Convention. Now I know. And I was sitting there saying this. Now I know everybody on here like pork rinds, so don't front. Okay. But at the same time, do we want to make that our debut? You know, on the market? Like, you know, will we be taken seriously by the Black nerd community and by the community in general, if that's part of it? And people was like, hell no. No, we can't come out like that, man. We'll get clowned and da 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 da. So by the time we get to say year 5, right? I'm looking for the pork rind guy. Like, like, hey, we already got a spades tournament going. You know, we got a barbershop at BlurredCon. You know, we really have found a way to kind of put this in and got the method. And now I think, the brand and the experience can withstand, even something that might be a little shocking, it might be a little edgy. And trying to figure out where that edge is from year to year is one of the challenges that a Black business serving a Black community goes through, that none of my white compatriots really have to worry about. All they have to be is true to the anime or the gaming or the comic fandom. And then the attendees handle everything else. They interpret it in their own way. They take what they want out of it and move on. But we're speaking directly to our folks. And our folks like to speak directly to us. Nobody can tell me who the convention chair is for Otakon right now. I mean, the biggest conventions in the DC metro area, and for $100, I could walk around waving it around and say, who's the con chair? And nobody be able to tell me, because with white-owned businesses, they don't need that personal identity piece to it. When it comes to Black business, there's a story behind everything that we support. If we go to a soul food restaurant or a Black-owned restaurant, we know who the owner is and how they were founded. And we saw that article in Forbes or in the Washington, blah, blah, blah. And we know what the name is and what it means and, where the flavors and all this stuff come from. And so, that identity piece of it means that we got to interact on an all-day, everyday basis with the community in order to stay, right on the cusp of what it is we are going to be providing, and the kind of space that we're going to create that allows for the community to create their own experiences and their own memories, which I think is a thing that we do very well.
100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like these almost like an unfair burden that a lot of Black businesses have to contend with. If you're just joining us, this is Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. We're taking Black folks into the future, and we're joined today by the BlurredCon founder, Mr. Hilton George. When I started the Afrofuturism Network and I started into the Afroverse, one of the things that happened was folks heard the name and they heard Afro in it. It's like, oh, you just can't do this because it sounds like you're talking to Black folks, only about Black people, so on and so forth. And I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. What did you have to contend with when you come out with BlurredCon? What were, like the naysayers, and, because when we're talking about this, and I'm sure folks are listening and want to start their own businesses, I also want to talk about, what do you have to put up with personally in terms of people kind of questioning your vision and how you were able to hold on to it? So what were the challenges that came with that?
Well, I think it harkens back to what I was saying before. There is not a consensus of what Blackness is in the Black community. Some people think a Black space is an exclusive space where there are only Black people. I call that the Wakanda, setup, right? Where it's just us. There's a big barrier, and you get in only with the right credentials and with the right cosign and everything. And then there's other people on the other side of the spectrum that question, well, why do I have to be a Black nerd? Why can't I just be a nerd? And all of these are existing in the same eco space, right? And these conversations happen one right after the other. The first time we went and set up at another convention to promote BlurredCon, a lot of what I was doing was evangelizing the term, defining what Black nerd was. And people were walking up and like, what is a blurred? Like a Black nerd would sit there and look at the front, like, what is a blurred? I'm like, you're a blurred. This is a Black nerd. And you watch this like, oh, and then you kind of see them kind of figure out where they are in that space. And some people were very, very excited, oh, that is a cool term and I'm going to run with it and stamp my shirt with it. But then there were others who, had different ideas. And I think from a business perspective, that is where a lot of the challenge has been. The fact that on one side, there are people who get mad if there are non-Black people included in any way in the blurred space. And, I tell them, listen, there aren't any exclusive Black spaces in the United States, right? And it is kind of an unfair burden in a way, because we don't ask this of any other business. If you had a Black-owned soul food restaurant, you wouldn't say, well, why are you serving white people? Like, what I'm saying? You'll go to a Mexican restaurant and say, oh my God, look at all these non-Mexicans in here eating tacos. This is not authentic at all. I'm questioning you, Jose. This is suspect. Like we kind of have this sliding scale with us that we don't put on other folks. And that is a hurdle because, people forget segregation was forced upon us, right? We didn't have to work to support Black businesses in the 50s and 60s. That was our our lot. We had no choice. So there wasn't some invisible muscle that we were flexing as a community that brought us together. For the most part, we were driven together by violence and discrimination and everything. And it was the external forces that had us in our huddle, right? And we were fighting to get out of the huddle and participate in this diverse society, which was America, right? And now we're kind of in this space where that muscle is not something that we can flex. And we look back and we go, oh man, back in the 60s, we had our own schools and we had our own stuff. And I was like, yeah, because we couldn't go nowhere else.
Right.
The minute, the Ivy League started admitting Black people started applying to the Ivy League. The minute the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball started bringing in, Black players, we started pitching to them, and so when you then turn around and say, okay, how can we flex this muscle to support Black business? We have to be taught that in a lot of cases. Sometimes we don't really understand what that means to say we call it standing. But I use Black Panther as the prime example. In 2018, we had this groundswell of support before this movie ever hit any screen.
Yes.
And I was one of those people, and I was preaching. I was like, listen, I can go into this movie and the credits could roll and then the power could cut off for 2 hours. And I'm gonna come out talking about it was the best movie I've ever seen. Y'all need to go. That's what standing is, right?
Right.
If I have criticisms about the movie, I'm not gonna start with that. I'm gonna pull back a little bit. I might not speak in mixed company in the same way I might in my home, community. But tempering, my stance on things and being careful with my words, so that, if there are things that I would like to see in an experience that is provided to me by a Black business, then I have to find a way to communicate that and do it in such a way that does not condemn or hurt the business. Right. And we struggle with that across the board. I told my one of my committee members that before we were doing BlurredCon, I said, I think we're gonna 50% of the Black community is the cap. Okay. And he looked at me, he's like, what are you talking about? This is for Black nerds. This is Black geekdom. What Black nerd wouldn't want, to come to a Black nerd convention? I said, well, ask how many Black people didn't vote for Barack Obama or didn't vote at all for the first Black president. We are not 100% across the board on anything as a people, nor should we be. I don't think that's fair for us. Right. But as a business owner, with a convention that, is conceptual for 11 months, 20 days, and 10 hours, except for the 3 days of that year that it exists, is a concept. It is a vision for which everybody has their own ideal. Now, it's a great branding thing from a business standpoint to have a brand that people project upon their hopes and ideals, right? Coca-Cola has this, Nike has it with their swoosh. Even if you don't wear them, you know it and you love it, right?
Exactly.
But when it comes to a tangible service or a physical space that you are crafting or providing, there's never going to be a universal, everything was 100%, everything I ever wanted across the board. When you get 5, 6, 7, 10,000 people in a room, there's going to be folks that are not going to be happy about this or that. And now that we got social media, we know how to share that in very dynamic ways.
Yes.
and I think that's always the challenge back and forth. How do we, provide what the Black community needs, even if they say they don't want it? Mm-hmm. What that means? That's like, you didn't ask for this, but we're going to give it to you. And then when you get it, you're going to go, I never knew I needed this. Thank you for providing it.
Right.
And then there's the direct response to the people who are having the experience and want to see something different or would like to see some things pull back. And we take those risks and we take those into account as well.
Excellent. And real quick, we've been talking about BlurredCon. How can folks find it? How can folks find out more about what you are doing and all of the information about BlurredCon?
Well, if you go onto any platform and type in BlurredCon, it will go to our account. So you're looking at, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter is BlurredCon DC. Mm-hmm. So all of us are on social media. BlurredCon.com is the website. Most of the announcements and the news and the little subtle community stuff will come through in the social media before it goes on to the website. The website is a lagging indicator and not as quickly updated for some things, but everything you'd ever want to know about BlurredCon can be found through BlurredCon's website, or just go and Google and type BlurredCon, and you'll find all kinds of articles and stuff. The thing that I found really interesting, that this was a very recent stat that was shown to me. TikTok is what, 3 years old now?
Mm-hmm.
BlurredCon has, at least a month and a half ago, it's probably more now, 471 million views of BlurredCon tagged, geotagged, and hashtagged content. And we have just enough of a TikTok account so that people can tag it. There's 2 TikToks on our TikTok account. We don't live there.
Right.
So so people are talking about BlurredCon. I mean, it's not all positive. Probably 50% people, mad about this or that. 50% of people who were there and like, hey, I had a great time. But the fact that we're in a space that, we have no push, no strategy, no marketing, lets me know that there is a community engagement that we do need to take serious, and we do our best to do that.
No, that's awesome. And like I started off with, one of the things that I like to talk about, and of course you're talking about it with this conversation, Black economics. And we look at geek culture's explosion of interest over the last few years, like this $billion industry. One of the things that always concerns me is we tend to miss out on a lot, or we're kept out of a lot. Can you speak to, for people out there that are looking to support and invest, what are they missing out on if they look past this culture, if they look past this space?
Okay, I'm going to say this, and can I curse on this show? I don't know. Can we edit? No, I can't. Okay, I won't say it. Because the saying has a curse word. But I was in New York, and I was doing an audio interview, and a guy asked me, he said, okay, is there a quote that encompasses, the dynamic or the experience that is signature to BlurredCon? And I said, yeah. And I said, everyone likes Black stuff. And I didn't say stuff.
I got you.
And he just looked at me as if I was going to follow it up. And I was looking at him like, no, that's the quote.
This is it.
And he's like, oh, and it hit him. I said, yeah, so much of what we do and so many things that we contribute to the culture, to the business, to education, to technology, it gets followed upon. We're the secret sauce in everything, right? And that's not being braggadocious or anything. It's just fact.
Right.
And oftentimes we are the last ones to get on our own bandwagon. And it's crazy because, I see other communities and other cultures that the dynamic is the exact opposite, right? Like if I go to Philly and I'm looking for a good bowl of ramen, I'm looking for where the Koreans are eating ramen. If I walk into a room and I see this is where all the Koreans sitting there eating ramen, so boy, I bet there's some dope ramen. They are crowding this place out. I can barely get my brown butt in here to eat some ramen. But Black folks are often the last people to buy into their own thing. And I think there's a certain amount of self-doubt and negative internal perceptions that we're still working through as a community behind that. But I think the social media dynamic doesn't help either. We're not using our lines of communication to empower and inform one another about opportunities that are there. Now, I'm going to say something in the radio world. I'm talking past Will to the radio world right now. I'm going to say this. Don't throw anything at your phone or whatever when I say this word, okay? Web3. What? Duh, get out the way. Somebody just threw. Somebody heard crypto. Somebody heard NFTs. That's a whole thing. I think that there is so much potential with this moving into the Web3 world, the gamification of education and, professional spaces and community spaces, is inevitable. And there's a lot of bad actors out there right now, and they're causing all kind of car accidents on the road, and there's, stagecoach robberies and train robberies happening. But what I want everybody to focus on is not what's happening on the road, but just the fact that there's a road and what that road could represent once we get some good traffic laws and get some good interstate commerce laws set in place that protect, us to a certain degree. Controlling the air quotes Black dollar is something that we are in a position coming up with crypto, with NFTs to do in a way that we weren't before. Black creativity, Black artistry, Black expression now has a way of being monetized and shared and utilized in a way that we're only using dollars for right now, right? And the barter society used to be what we were. You know, you cut my son's hair, I cut your lawn. You know, you fix my roof, I fix your plumbing. I take your kids to school because I got a car and you don't. But, you know, you dog sit my dog when I'm traveling out of town. My dog. You know, we used to do a lot of that. And it worked so well to build and bind our community. And money has had the exact opposite effect.
Yes, it has.
Right. We kind of go into a hoarder perspective with that. So we don't invest in one another. We don't push one another. We don't support one another. We do not look at ourselves as the market. And there's some people whose feelings might be hurt when I say this, but we have become very good at raising venture capital for businesses that don't have an audience and don't have a customer base. And you know, these businesses, they come and go and they make noise and stuff like that. But are we providing something that is of value to us and to the world at large? That's the end of the day question. And if you are, there is a way to monetize that and put a business model on that we can all participate in. I'm not even going to say Black. I will say nerd conventions and the con-going nerd space is an ecosystem of its own. Right. There's an economy there that is controlled and monitored and influenced and written about and built upon the idea of people coming into a space that are like-minded and celebrating fandoms and enthusiasm for certain toys and comics and art and things like that we exchange day to day that, you know, we're not on. And Black people, unfortunately, are often the last people to adopt new technologies. You know, it was my father's generation that was the last to want to upload their credit card information to Amazon.com, right? My father's 80 now. If he goes on Amazon and it didn't save his credit card, he's going to lose his mind. Like, what the heck is going on? This is crazy, right? I was the last brother to buy a DVD player on the East Coast. I guarantee you. I knew my forehead hi-fi, you know, VCR. I said it right. My VCR was going to be the jam forever, right? Web3, crypto, NFTs, I don't want that to be the same thing for us. Like right now, I'm not saying everybody go throw your money into anything or but get informed, get educated. And then when those opportunities and doors open, we'll be better prepared and on a better footing to take advantage.
Excellent. Hey, believe it or not, man, we're coming up against it. But one of the things that I always challenge my guests with, you know, here into the Afroverse is we talk about the future of Black folk. And my question to you is, what do you see for the future of Black people? And what is your role in bringing that into fruition?
Wow, that's a deep question, sir. I look at the next generation, and my background's in higher ed, so I've had a glimpse. And these are a group of tech natives for whom which technology is not technology. Right? It's an extension of their hand. And technology is moving so much faster than people in our age group, 30s, 40s, and going forward, are really going to be able to keep up with in the same way. It will be our job to make sure that Black people, young Black people, are going to be the best entrepreneurs that they could possibly be. Even within the workspace, the entrepreneurship is there. The diversification of, you know, their knowledge, assets, you know, areas of expertise, connections and networking in the community is going to be on us to provide that for them. And I think there's going to be some amazing things happening both for us and the Black community and what we're able to contribute to the world, and recognizably and determinatively so, you know, that I mean, I want to stay around just to look at it, even after I'm retired and sitting in a wheelchair watching it on TV. But there's so much potential. There's so much talent out there that has the means and the method to get out and be monetized and be shared, that there really is no limit to what we can do. And I'm not talking 80 years, I'm talking the next 10, 15 years. We're going to see it. And it's going to happen so fast that by the time it's on us, we're going to be like, yo, this whole world has just turned on us and it's a new thing. And I think we're going to be at the forefront of it in ways that we can't anticipate.
Awesome. So one more time, how can they find you? BlurredCon, how can we find you? And also tell us when the next event is.
Oh, yeah. BlurredCon is at the Hyatt Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia, right next to the Reagan National Airport, July 7th through 9th this coming summer. And it's a 3-day, 24-hour convention. We don't send you home. Go to blurredcon.com or type BlurredCon into any of the social media engines, and you'll see our website and our announcements. We got Cree Summer as our guest this year. Really, really thrilled about that. She hadn't been out to a con in forever. It's a reunion. It's a whole vibe. It's not like any other nerd experience you've ever had, and we're really looking forward to seeing what happens this summer.
Yeah, I've been to them, folks, and I can attest to that. That is true. So one more time, sir, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
that'll do it for us. This is Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. We're taking Black folks into the future. And a special shout out to Mr. Duke Productions for producing today's episode. Thank you so much, brother.